Hi guys, welcome to True Sovereign Self. I'm Anastasia, and today I have a very special guest with me. She's been a friend of mine for years and years now, Collette, haven't we? Number of
Few
years.
years now,
Yeah, quite a few years. It was when I was 30 and I'm 36 now, so it's quite a while. Yeah, years goes fast. So Collette Corcoran is she's the founder and owner of Temple de la Rose in France. It's a wonderful, beautiful retreat center, as you can see it behind you guys. And she does a lot of the feminine teachings. And today we're going to dive into the dark feminine. So I'm really excited about this because our work is very aligned at the moment, isn't it, with the shadow and dark femininity. And I just want to ask you, what are you seeing? Because we always hear in the media and the press about toxic masculinity, and toxic femininity isn't really spoken about. So what do you view dark femininity and toxic femininity as?
So yeah, this toxic masculinity, it's just a projection from the darker feminine. So anything that like wants to say, oh, it's them, there's always something missing in the self. So yeah, it's been fueled, I think, from the feminine looking for the masculine to blame for whatever it might be, love, relationships, situation in our planet. So yeah, this is a rising really not of the toxic masculine, but of the shadow feminine, using that word to say, oh, it's your fault. So whenever I see that or feel that like a projection, there's always something to be owned by the counterbalance. And in this case, yeah, I don't want to call it the toxic feminine. It's not, it's human behavior. We all
absolutely.
In a shadow way. So yeah, it's just, I think it's coming from the shadow feminine.
Yeah, it's quite disempowering as well, isn't it, that we're giving something that, because I always say to people, your darkest elements are some of your greatest power, and that's what we're not taught. There's very few people teaching that out there, that the darker elements can be really powerful.
No, I agree. It's if we kind of traverse that, if we say, okay, so we're blaming a culture or a sex or a person, if we can pull that back to ourselves and see what that shadow is in us, then that's where we can find deep healing, in fact, and the deep gold as to why are we projecting this, what are we not wanting to own. So all of this stuff about patriarchy and matriarchy, and kind of like, well, that's pretty new age technical wording, isn't it, for saying, we are looking at a society where we're trying to get balance. So let's blame men or let's blame women instead of let's look at the individual.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Personal responsibility is so healing. There's something that you wrote on your Facebook which I really liked, and you were talking about the feminine pain body.
Yeah.
Can you go into a little bit of that? Because I know you're a yoga teacher as well, so obviously the body and the physical temple is very important. But can you just explain to the viewers what you meant by that, and how you can see that working in healing and moving this dark femininity forward?
Yeah, the pain body is like an energetic response and also a physical response. So you can tend to see what the pain body looks like. That's my dog. So you can tend to see what the pain body looks like in a woman by her somatic, by her movement. So just simply like holding shoulders or shrugging down, like protecting self, or it might be the over kind of this, all that goes on. So this is all telling, and it's all protection, whether that comes out as the weaker, the submissive, or whether it comes as the over dominant. There's always generally the same wounding behind it. So I'll describe how I see the pain body. The pain body is a collection of your wounds that you've collected over this lifetime. So the thing happened to you in this lifetime, it's a collection of generational pain. So from your mother's lineage, from your ancestors' lineage, and then it's kind of like a collective as well. What have women all over the world suffered from, and how do I carry that in my body too? So what it doesn't allow the pain body is for you to say, you can't drop into victimhood, for example, in the pain body, because we are seeing that all women everywhere carry everything, all pains. response. For one woman's story might look different, but the pain will be the same. You know, I remember a space.
Sorry,
I was working with a teacher, for example, and I was feeling this kind of the plight of this Iranian woman. And I remember going into a deep meditation with it and just like really feeling that pain. And you know, you're an empathetic person. I am too. And I was like, this isn't just like empathy. I can physically feel this. And then at that point, what I realized was that I actually wasn't separate from that woman. You know, being a woman myself, even though a story of persecution or whatever that was different, we carry this as women. She, you know, how do I know in one lifetime I've not been an Iranian woman, or I'm going to be in the next life? So we carry these healings that we all need to go through. It's an individual quest, but it's a very, and this is where I like to say we're one, because people like to say we're one when it's all glowy and lovely, but we're generally one in pain and hurt.
I totally agree with that. And it's really interesting because, you, as you know, I do parts work, and you'll see that certain parts live in different parts of the body. So the inner critic lives in the head. If there's sexual wounding with a woman, it's always in the womb area. It's always here. It's always carried here. So
yeah, definitely. I agree with that. And that's what led me to do a lot of womb work, is because when I was working on people's bodies somatically with like yoga and one-to-ones, it was all manifesting in the womb area and to do with, you know, like common diseases of the womb or ailments or painful menstruation. It's all connected to the emotional pain body. It all goes deep into that.
Yeah. I recommended this book yesterday, but I'm just going to show it again. This is such a fantastic book. I don't know if you've come across it.
No, not that
copy
one.
of it, but yeah, it goes into just like every single ailment that's possibly ever known, and the emotional, like how it's held emotionally and somatically. But yeah, can you talk a little bit more about wound healing and work for those that might not know about that?
Yeah, so I first came across, like, obviously doing yoga first was it was all very physical for me, and then came to realize that there was something going on with the emotional body and spiritual body as I was working with people, and everything happened quite naturally for me. I wasn't looking to do emotional healing. It was happening in my yoga studio. So I was like, there's some connection with this. And I came across a teacher who did emotional work. So I kind of went on the retreats and did the courses. I ended up working with this teacher and getting into quite a dark space because I was in a cult. And then, and then escaped that, and then realized there was some actual, like, wherever there's darkness, I know there is also beauty. So escaping that minefield of work was also bringing me out of, there was some true teachings in there too. And so part of that was to come out with these true teachings and really apply them to my work. So I kind of went deeper into my yoga work, which is when I created Chakra Evolution, and looked at the somatic emotional connection going on with the body. And that for me was working with people's, I used to do 4 or 5 one-to-ones a day with people. So I started to connect the dots, and I could see, you know, that there were certain woundings in certain parts of the body, and it was chakra connected, or whether the energy center connected, whatever. But I could see in like the womb area, which like Eastern medicine might call like the Muladhara, for example, there was all like endometritis, or if there was menstrual issues, I could take them deep into, let's go beyond the physical pain. So let's connect to, like you with the parts work, let's connect to that part, and allowing people the space to open up. What are you feeling? What's coming up here? What can you voice? And then the emotion would open up naturally. They would cry, or they'd rage and get anger, and I would just hold space for that, and that's all I do. I didn't need to heal anyone else. The self-healing was going on with the person. I was just holding that and facilitating that space for that person to experience this. And then after that emotion came up, I would often then come back to the body and use some kind of somatic movement to release it. So how does this now need to be released through the body? And so you would often get, like, if say we were sat in, you know, say with the arms up, because this often brings anger up. It's a Kundalini asana, it brings anger up. and then they'd want to like move it or
Mm.
push it, or so like an animal would, you know, in nature. An
Yeah.
animal goes through something and it shakes it off. So letting people do that, and then they'd feel the space where that was created, and then they may discuss, you know, this happened to me as a child, or so it was so beautiful to see, because I know I work in therapy, I'm doing mind body therapy and intensive training. I know we go to the story first often, but with somatic therapy, you go to the body first and you let the body tell you what's going on.
Yeah, the body always keeps score, as they say. What's interesting as well, you know, all our different organs as well, they all carry their own consciousness and their own frequency, and they all have their own story. So it's always, you know, we have the we have the macro and then the micro, and then we have our macro and our micro as well, which people sometimes
and then disease as well. You know, people think like, oh, there's cancer runs in my family, bowel cancer, and they think that that's what they're going to get because it's hereditary. But it's working with people to say, what was the emotional influence that created that cancer in the bowel? And let's go into your bowel. It doesn't mean you're predetermined to get that type of cancer, but you're obviously predetermined to the emotional healing that's needed, that your lineage has passed you down. So for breast cancer in women's families, for example, what is the underlying emotional issue that keeps being repeated epigenetically? Because this is stored in your epigenetics. This is like in your body waiting for you to heal.
It's the same. I do the same with people who've been through sexual trauma as well, because I had some earlier sexual trauma, so my boundaries from a very early age were violated. So I didn't even really realize that my body was sacred until I was in my 30s. But you know, you have to do that work, especially with sexual trauma. You have to. There's such an ancestral tie into all of that, which you need to unravel and do the work around. But can we just talk about your guru time and your time in the cult?
So I ended up doing a body of work by a teacher of the womb, and this book, I was handed a book called Sacred Wounds, which was a book about the wounds that the body holds. And it was one of my yoga clients that gave it me, said, you'd be really interested in this because it's all about the emotional stuff. And so I took this book, and it's incredible. Like, it's incredible. And then I read more books, and then I got a deep calling to do some work with this teacher, but this teacher was in hiding, wasn't doing any work. It was in writing. He wrote many books, and I think he was in some kind of sacred retreat. So I just said to, you know, I've been praying and praying, show me my teacher. My teacher's got a call. I'm ready for my master. I want to learn. And I woke up the next morning and I had a message on my phone saying retreat with the teacher. So I was like, oh my gosh, she's come out of hiding. And so I clicked straight away, I'm going. So I ended up in Turkey on a massive retreat with lots of women doing womb wisdom work, entering the womb and Shakti. And I must say, it was one of the most mystical experiences I'd ever had, to be in a room with like 69 women that were coming into emotion and experiencing things with their womb. I was seeing all kinds of crazy stuff go on in this room, but I had a deep resistance too. So anyway, after a short amount of time on that training, the teacher came up to me and said, you've got what it takes to be one of my teachers, and I'm looking for teachers, but you're so wounded and you need a lot of work. I kind of gathered that from the course, because, you know, out of 69 women, I was the only woman stood there not crying. Why are they all crying? What is wrong with them all? I had huge resistance to entering into a deeper emotional space myself. So I got what he said, and I was like, no, he's right. And so, and then I just entered into the healing, which was called at the time the 7 gates of feminine healing. So the 7 gates in the womb. And it was kind of put together by a group of women. He had 3 other teachers that worked for him, and I did the courses with them and with him, and then later solely with him. And he was brilliant at spotting your shadow, and like put like in a very cruel way. Now I work with analysis now, and it's not the same way. in a very harsh, cruel way, which broke me down. And I'm not being a victim here, because I needed crushing. Like, at that point that I met him, I was very successful in my yoga studio, 50, 60 people coming to classes. I was in a big ego space and like in an I am space, and I needed crushing. And that's what he did.
Yeah.
Properly crushed me to the point that I was suicidal, didn't realize I was being brainwashed, didn't realize I was being accused of everything. He told me that I was a priestess in Egypt and that the downfall of Egypt was my fault.
That old line, eh? Priestess in Egypt. No spiritual man ever pulls that one out of the bag, do they? Not heard that before.
So I was like, oh my God, but that's the ego. I was a priestess in Egypt, to believe that there was massive shadow in me. And it took me down and it took me down. I ended up giving up everything, no regrets. It's what I needed to do. I gave up everything. I moved to New Zealand. And there were just little things that started to show themselves to me that wasn't right. And one of them being, there was always an insinuation that I held something in my womb that was his and he had to get it out.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh.
But I was like, I've got this big, hard defense as a woman, and I've got quite a lot of masculine energy. And I think I was kind of drawing from the cat and mouse that was going on between us. I was the only woman he hadn't really bedded.
Right.
The kind of woman that, like, I've been in rooms with him with a group of women and they've taken the clothes off, like their clothes came off.
And I'm there with some power, hasn't he?
I'm there with a blanket around me going, nope.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had huge resistance, but there was obviously a shadow play with me. And it was an astrologist actually that I had a session with, and she said to me, you are playing cat and mouse with this man and it's dangerous, get out. And also for me, the accolade of working with him, I became one of his teachers, and so I got a lot of like recognition for that, and that was hard to give up.
Yeah.
So So the only way I started to feel all this shadow work. I taught on a retreat in the south of France with one of his teachers, and she was a shadow worker. And so things started to drop in these shadow sessions, and I sought a shadow worker. And I took myself off to Thailand. I hid on the island for a month to try to unwind and get away from this man, because unless you've ever been in this, you don't know the powers that work with these people to kind of keep you brainwashed and under the influence. And that was all to do with my weaknesses, my needs, my feminine shadow. The feminine shadow that took me to a man for womb healing,
Yeah, that's interesting in itself. What do you think these hidden powers are that these people are using? Because obviously, we had the John of God thing as well, didn't we, recently?
Yeah.
And he was a massive world-renowned healer that was doing some completely atrocious, despicable things, and there's been a number. I think there's been there's been a new one this week, hasn't there? I can't keep up.
Kundalini, Yogi Bhajan, the Kundalini lady, and there'll be more and more come out.
So what do you think it is? What's the I'm trying to get at? What's the hidden forces that are moving through these people, because they're not working from the heart. They're not working from the heart.
It's dark magic.
Yeah.
And this is what happens. I see it. I'm clairvoyant. I work in a clairvoyant realm, but I work clairvoyantly very grounded. Like I don't tell futures. I don't deal with all that, but I do see things.
Yeah.
And what happened on the last meeting with this man, I was in a room, and it's why I use the Wizard of Oz analogy. The veil fell, and I could see what looked like a dark sorcerer hidden behind this persona. And that's when the Jungian work I'd been doing just fell. And I was like, I've fallen in my shadow for the persona.
Yeah.
And now I'm seeing the archetypes that are working behind that. So there was there's no doubt that he has magician energy, but it was magician energy in the shadow.
Yeah.
So like, you know, all of the archetypes, we know we have them in light and we have them in shadow. So all of those things that I'd exalted him for, and I was looking for, and I know now, for that kind of masculine. We aren't we as women desperate for that magician, lover, warrior? And you know, and I'd refused that in men in my life, because I was hardcore with men in my life in a relating way. And you know, with the father, I had a very dominant father, so he was like everything personified in my woundedness, and I projected that on him. And when the veil fell, I was like, oh, it's the Wizard of Oz. There's a little man behind that screen.
Yeah.
And then the shadow revealed itself to me, and I thought, I've got to work with this shadow stuff.
Yeah. I'm really glad that you said that. I had the similar experience with, not quite as, in a different way. It was dark and deep with the whole twin flame phenomenon that everybody kind of is trying to manifest. Yeah. And what I realized is, you know, I was having this great sex with this, you know, this beautiful man, but we both had very, very deep sexual wounding. Like, both of us had it, and we'd manifested each other to clear that. And what's really upsetting and quite disturbing about them teachings is that women will stay hanging around forever, especially women that are, you know, want children, that are at child sort of bearing age. They can miss their chance of having kids. They can miss their opportunity on, you know, great relationships and connecting deeply with somebody, because they believe that they've got to stay in this, you know, this chaser stage. So yeah, I have my own experience with that old realm of
I see that a lot with clients that come to me as well, and to get through that, you know, I've been through it too. It's a very hard one to knock on the head, because there's just, and it's so significant actually, if you get somebody who believes they're in a twin flame relationship, you can spot all the shadow behaviors just by looking at it. The denial, the defense, the you know, it's all classic shadow behaviors that come
the
up.
Denial's a huge one. The denial is so huge, and then it's fueled by all these, you know, twin flame reports and astrology reports and twin flame tarot reading, and you know, people charging £5,000-10,000 for twin flame courses. I'm thinking of doing a like heal from course. There you go, 99 quid, done.
You know, don't really think like if you put twin flame on a package, you could sell it to 20,000 people, because we're all looking for the ultimate without doing the work. So anything that's looking for the ultimate without doing the work will sell, because nobody really wants to do the shadow work.
No, that's
because it's so difficult.
Yeah, it's really hard. It's warrior work, as Jung would say. So I just want to talk to you and get your opinion on the whole goddess circle realm, because I will be open and honest with my own goddess experience. When I was in my twin flame relationship, I thought I was Mary Magdalene for a while. What I now realise is that I was identifying with the archetype of the sacred prostitute and the woman that's been, you know, cast as the harlot or whatever word. That's what I was connecting with, not that I was really Jesus's lover in a past life. So
oh really? That's a shame. There could have been a lot of money to be made by that.
I know, I could be making a fortune right now if I was doing Mary Magdalene, you know, activations. Send me £100 and I will give you a 5-minute activation into the Mary Magdalene energy. But what's your kind of your view on the whole goddess?
So I love the Christ teachings, the mystical teachings of the Magdalene. I love the teachings of the Black Madonna. All of that completely resonates within me. There's a big, you know, like blueprint of that, and I've taught that very real, like, you know, what we were discussing earlier is that the archetype that lives within all women, of all these goddesses, that's why we love them. They're a mythos. Mythos calls to us because there's a thread in there. So for example, at the minute I'm reading courses called the Unveiling the 12, and I'm looking at Isis. Are you there?
Oh, you just cut off for a moment then. I think are you in the south of France? Are you in the south? Or?
In the southwest, but I'm really rural, so the internet we're in like a spot.
So go on. I caught up to when you teach your goddess courses, you teach them in a very grounded, very real way.
In the shadow. Yeah, in the shadow. So, like, for example, what is, the energy of Eve or Lilith within us in the shadow. So they're at two polarities. So the Eve is like I look at them through archetypes. What the damsel, the disobeyer. Then we've got Lilith, who's like the wanton women. People want to be Lilith, and they can kind of crawl into that horrible dark mythos instead of what is Lilith showing you about your shadow. And that's how I like to teach it. Where have you been like turned away from God? Where have you been like overpowered? Lilith energy I carry, I know I do, but it's not been good. It's been dismissive of the masculine. It's been used the masculine. It's not allowed the masculine in. It's had high expectations of the masculine. So this is how I use the goddess energies to say, okay, we have such a draw to mythos and to the tales of these women. So what's in it for us? Let's not just take the crown and glory and say, oh yeah, we're already there, because we're not. But what are then tales? What are those stories? What do those myths resonate within us in our shadow? Because that's how we then accumulate that energy. We all look at Mary Magdalene and say, oh, she was a mystical trailblazer. We all want to do that.
Yeah.
But then, if you go into the truth of the story, it wasn't glorious. She didn't go around in a beautiful goddess gown and a rosy crown. She was barefoot with nothing, with no possessions. A whole family deserted it. People don't want to see the raw and real. They dress it up.
Oh, I think I'm more in the raw and real Madeline now than my fantasy version of her.
And the sad thing is, I see that there's a lot of money to be made in making women believe that these archetypes and that's a very shadow energy. It's a way to separate from who you really are. If you're putting your name's Isis on your Facebook page, it's a rejection of you. Who are you?
Of course it is. Yeah.
It's like,
and it makes tons of money. Tons of money, like you say. It makes absolutely tons of money. Yeah.
I had it out with a teacher recently who came under the name of Isis about what I felt was going on in one of her groups with separating women, with putting herself in a higher position. I can bring Madeline to you and I will help you. No. Like, she can access that energy herself. So empower her to do that and stop saying that she needs you to access that, because that's not true. And that's what worries me, because when we see these names, there's usually a shadow in themselves separating from their true self, and using that shadow with women so that women separate from their own true power too. So that's the danger, isn't it?
And I think there's a lot of people, and I've done this myself in the past, there's so many healers. I mean, the reason why I called this channel True Sovereign Self is because I want people to, everything comes from their own inner power and their own self energy and their own sovereignty. And I think there are so many people out there, so many healers that they're literally just collecting people's energy. That's all that they're doing, and harnessing their energy. It's very iconic, very iconic.
No, I agree, completely dark. And that was what was happening with my teacher. There's they don't realize behind the veil is that iconic energy. When the veil drops, there's some dark energy working through them, trying to siphon, whether that's sexually, emotionally, financially. There's just always some, and I see that and I feel it and I point it out. So I'm often kicked out of groups, quite often. Oh, it's her again, but I just won't put up with it, and I want to speak the truth to people, because we are divinely unique. We've got a very beautiful blueprint. And if we're prepared to go into the things that keep us from that blueprint, that divine blueprint, the shadow aspects of us, we can all access it. And we don't need another Mary Magdalene. We need you. We need you. We need Collette. We need to be us on this planet. They've done their work. Yeah. So what is our work on this planet? And Lord knows at the moment our blueprints are needed, because look at what's going on around us.
very exciting, chaotic time to be alive. So if for those that have incarnated and understand, you know, some of this knowledge and wisdom which has been passed down from the ancients, then, you know, we've got a real opportunity to make some change here, a real opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, everything falls into, when you know the shadow and you know the darkness and you know the chaos, everything's birthed out the chaos. The world as it is, none of us really are happy with it. None of us like it, even if you're not conscious or awake.
No.
And everything has to be destroyed to be recreated. And we get to, in this day and age, determine how that happens, or we don't, depending if enough of us wake up, shake up and say, okay, this is me, I'm part of this bigger problem, and how do I change?
Yeah, I always say the revolution's within. It's not, you know, how are you saving yourself? How are you planting the seeds in your family? Are you overwatering those seeds and drowning your family and friends out with your own voice and opinion, or are you allowing them to just grow a little bit and nurture them a little bit? So I think I think especially in like the truth movement and, you know, spirituality, we can often think that we're here to save the world when really we need to be saving ourselves, planting the seeds in our families, you know, doing things in our communities. Today I have been on my reporting of rubbish in the woods because I get very upset when there's fly tipping in the woods in England. So I've been on my little mission reporting that today, and that's my way of doing my bit to help. And you know, I always go around picking rubbish up. It's a little thing that I have a habit of doing. So, you know, just even little things. I think you know, we get, especially with social media, we get very tied up with that. And although it's important for awareness, but I think it's also important to actually put some real world action in as well, which is, I don't see a lot of.
I totally agree. I think everyone, I mean, when I work with people and they say, you know, I want purpose, I want to help, they think they have to be like the leader of Greenpeace or like take some army into the camps in America. And there are people doing that whose blueprints to do that. And that's brilliant. But we all need to realize that if we all started in our little hubs, like you say, picking up litter in your park, making sure that the homeless man in the village has a cup of coffee and a sandwich, then we start to spread out. That becomes the good virus, and the virus spreads out, and everyone's doing for each other, checking Mavis is okay down the road, taking your clothes to the local charity shop, you know, doing your bit. That's like what we're doing here in France. You know, we when we get people here, we're shocked at, like, they'll like spend, people wanting 3 showers a day, spending 10 minutes in the shower. And I'm like, we're on 3-minute showers once a day. We're trying to conserve what we've got. We recycle everything, you know, and when people come here and we try to hold that ethos, we don't need to say anything to them. They start to self-inquire. Well, I'm not doing that at home. You know, we went away to a hotel, for example, the other day, and my son, who's 13, like, we flushed the toilet here when we're on a Foss septic, which is like a French septic tank. It all mulches down, and all that comes out of it is water. So we don't flush the toilet unless, you know, we have certain rules, like wheeze, don't flush the toilet. We don't need to use the water. We're all on water meters here. We're going to have a water bore. And we were in the hotel and he was like, I can flush the chain. And I was like, no, you can't. Just because we're somewhere else, the same problem exists. Like, there's still water shortage. So it doesn't matter that somebody else is paying for it or dealing with it. The fact is, we're being conscious of our consumption. And I think that's what the thread needs to be, is that we all just need to be conscious of our own little doings, and the little doings is where it's all going to start to spread out.
And then you change your reality as well, because you're changing your vibrational frequency inside when you're doing that. So you change your complete reality changes. I know mine has, certainly. I mean, from when I first met you, my reality is completely different now, but and yours as well.
I mean, that's evolving, isn't it? Hopefully that's what happens. We're not the same person. It shows evolution. And I'll look back at me in 10 years and think, oh, gosh, was she doing that then? You know, because I'll have evolved even more.
So tell me what's your sort of tips for shadow work? What's your what tips do you have for people?
Okay, so yeah, when I work with the shadow, I think it's really important that you have someone to work with, first of all, because everyone, I see it around now, it's becoming a new buzzword, which frightens me.
It is. I mean, I only found shadow work because I was a fucking absolute mess. I was an absolute mess. I was like Humpty Dumpty that fell off the wall, that had a massive, huge, great fall. I was in a million different pieces and had to piece myself back together. So that's how I found it. I didn't find it because I wanted to make tons of money and I thought I was going to be the greatest, best thing since sliced bread. I did it through my own deep, dark, very dark awakening, like yourself. After you had the girl thing, I had the twin flame thing. So yeah,
I looked at shadow work and I looked at Jung and I looked at how to do it, and I was kind of doing little self practices and things like that, and it wasn't until I ended up like in a complete mess, left wherever I was in hiding, came to Chartres in Paris to do a retreat with Carolyn Mason and Andrew Harvey. And it was Carolyn Mason who gave me a really good grilling, like absolutely kicked my backside about what I'd been involved in, and said, you need to look at your shadow and you need a teacher. And so then I kind of thought, I need to take a bit of humility here. And so I went to an analysis, a Jungian analysis, and having someone point out stuff to you is so different than you going, okay, this is my shadow and I need to work on this, because it's so subconscious. It's so tricky and conniving that it will never really truly reveal itself to you. So I get some kind of concepts of, I know if I'm speaking to somebody in a bad way that it's shadow behavior. I know that certain things that trigger me in other people, I need to take that inward and say, why is that triggering me? What part of me is bothered by that? I need to know that there are places that, when I'm in judgment, and I hate this word non-judgment because it's not true. We judge every bloody 5 minutes. I have it all the time. I see a space of non-judgment. Oh, really? Like, how you must be really evolved. So recognizing that we're human, that we do behave badly, that we do judge other people, and then I can say, okay, I'm a judgmental person, and then I can say, look at you and go, what am I judging about her already? What is my judgment? And that way I can catch myself. And so for me is the denial for shadow work. Whenever there's a denial, a massive no, I'm like, okay, I'm in my shadow here. What? And you'll still do it. You'll still go, no, it's not that, it's this. And I have it in my courses with people. I'll point out a shadow piece and they'll come up with the big denial. And so I always say there's these steps. First of all, there's the realization. Then there's the acceptance. And there's no acceptance without denial. You will instantly deny. And then you have to come into an acceptance of it. And then you can emote it. So there's a sticking point with this denial. That's the hardest thing to come through. It's like when someone says something to you and you point blank refuse to accept it, there's somewhere to go with that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But the only thing is, when you're in very deep denial, the only thing that got me, when I was in my twin flame denial, the only thing that got me out of that denial was, I'll be honest, I was doing a bit of online stalking at that time because, I remember telling my IFS therapist, I was like, I went into her room and I was like, I need to come clean. I've been, and I felt really bad as well. I felt like I'd done something really dirty. I've been stalking him online. Because I've been watching his videos again and again and again. I know all the words. And I don't even like the music. And I was like, and then she just told me, she said, why don't you just do more of it? And I was just like, the minute she said that, she like gave me a permission to do it. I was like, I don't want to do it anymore. I just was like, all right, okay, that's over then. I no longer watch his music videos on YouTube fantasizing about our reunion in France on our Mary Magdalene trail or whatever.
It's Jesus and Mary.
And he looked like Jesus as well. You've seen a picture of him. I think I sent you one.
Yeah.
He looked like Jesus as well. So
that's the problem though, isn't it? It's tricky because without that other voice saying to you, well, just do it.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have got there.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't have got there at all. She was just like, just allow that part to stalk him if you want.
Yeah, it is, and it's true. It's like your own conditioning will impact what you think's right or wrong. And I have this in my group, say, with people with, you know, this, they talk about sexual shadow, and they might say, as a young kid, I was exploring, and I'm like, that's normal. And some things that you think are shadow aren't shadow. They're just kind of your conditioning, the way that you've been nurtured, or your taboos. So yeah, I just say, get a therapist, somebody that's willing to point those things out to you, because they are it's a game changer.
Yeah. Had she not said that to me, I would still be on YouTube now.
Exactly, looking him up, thinking you're in the biggest taboo. But I bet you, in your sessions, like me with my sessions with people, we deliver truth, don't we? We deliver truth. We know it's not going to be well liked. We want to be sat in our rose crown and our Madeline gown saying, you are a rose priestess and you have done nothing wrong and it's all his fault. We could do that, but we offer in a real therapy, a real work situation, quite the reverse. And that's why people are scared of doing the shadow big work, because they think that there's a lot of judgment in that and a lot of punishment in that. And it's the reverse, isn't it? As you know, when you find a part of yourself that you've pushed away, you've exiled, you've been protecting it, it's been exiled, and you've got to bring that back in love. You've got to say, it's okay, you're okay. Like, let's get down to why you're behaving like this. What's the hurt? What's the pain? So people think it's a very cruel process. I have one say, this is painful. Well, it is, because it's drawing out the pain. We don't just put a lovely glittery plaster over it and say, ignore it, it'll be okay. We say, let's get that infection out. Let's get that poison out of your body. As we draw it out, it's going to be a little bit painful, but then it's gone.
Yeah, and it transforms. You know, some of this poison can be some of your, you know, your cure. It can be your real cure. So I just want to ask you about sacred sexuality, because I know that you've done a lot of work around this, and how this can really help people who have been through sexual trauma. Because I think, you know, having been through it myself, I know how important it is to put boundaries around your body and to engage in sex in a loving and conscious way, rather than, because people who've been through sexual abuse, they often, you know, love is associated with them just giving themselves and just giving away themselves and giving away their power. And I think it's really important for people that have been through sexual trauma to be able to start to love and start to nurture and start to worship, but not in a, I'm not saying like in a worship weird way, but I mean in a just an honoring way, an honoring of your precious body in this reality.
Exactly. And that was why I did a lot of sacred sexuality, and I did tantra, and I went to India, and I seen so many horrible stuff out there. And then all the Christian and the Christed stuff came to me, and then I worked with a beautiful tantric teacher, a very elderly lady, and then discovered this kind of, and then the work I'd done with the womb teacher, I just like saw this course lay out before me, and I do a course in sacred sexuality that's all about exactly what you say. I think when we've been abused, and like if I've got a group of say 10 women, for example, at the minute, most of them have been sexually abused in some way, and so it's about them, and they've all like, that abuse has made them reach out for men and come into abusive relationships or abandoned relationships, or with men who never fully commit to them. And so what the course does, and what I try to do in the course, is go through each part of the sexual self, the body, and get the women to start to honor their own body, each single part, the yoni lips, the clitoris, everything, their self, and come into self-exploration in a sacred, pure, loving way, and apologizing to that space and forgiving themselves for what they didn't know, and where they allowed that energy in. And you know, it's very tricky, because we get to places where women come to a point where they're like, I can't believe I did this to myself, and you have to keep saying, well, you didn't know. We weren't taught as children that we were so sacred, that our sexuality was so potent and so desirable by men and so wanted, and to guard it, and not like, we weren't given that. We were either told it was wrong and you can't do it, or we were brought up by liberated parents who were like, it's just sex, get on with it. So there's a lot of damage around that from the imprints we were given, and from our relating that we've had. And the truth is, and you know this, Anastasia, is that nobody's got the answer to what a good relationship looks like. No one's got the ultimate, this, because we're all wounded. So we're all having a bloody good go at what looks right. And that's why we're saying we're trailblazing. What does good relating look like? What should it look like? We don't know that, but I can tell my son, this is what it doesn't look like. So even that, what you were saying, all that experience that you have is teaching for women, because you know what it doesn't involve, and you know what it doesn't look like.
And I know the level of guilt and shame that you carry as well is just, the amount of work that I've had to do with shame and shame and shame and shame. And every experience that I brought into was just, it was adding another layer onto shame, another layer of shame, another layer of shame. And it's a minefield, untangling it, because it's real deep complex PTSD, and it's like this. And it's, my one of my clients describes it like a hairball, and you have got to untangle it, and it's really hard, it's really difficult work.
Well, there's something so precious in the middle of that hairball, right in the midst, that over all these years you've kind of built up the layers over to protect that and that's what sacred sexuality is about, is acknowledging that very precious, very pure, very fragile, vulnerable part of us as a woman, that we're guarding, that we've all guarding, because we've not treated it right, we've not protected it, we've all, whatever our story is. And so, like you were saying, the layers of shame that you have gone through is, in my course, it's like, you bag them up, sister, you bag them layers up, because you've gone through all those layers. And what more can you help with a woman with shame? Because you've dismantled it in yourself.
I know. I always say that to people: work with people who've been through it. Don't work with the people who have the best Facebook posts or the best Instagram shots. Work through the people who've, work with the people who've actually done the work, who's really been in it themselves. Because if you have, then it's another level of understanding. It's an embodied level of understanding, and not just I'm going to read some young quotes and I'm going to do a fucking Instagram drives me nuts. Like these I'm in water floating because I and then some young quote with it. I'm like, Jesus Christ, he'd be rolling around in his grave saying, do your fucking shadow work if you could see it.
Yeah. And that's how people have done the work, because it's not glorified.
It's not
glorified. And sacred sexuality isn't about orgasm and all this stuff, the tantra work, like bringing an on fire woman. It's actually the reverse. It takes us right back into our little shell and into our little sacred safe space. We can't ever, I know with like the neo tantra world, that behavior is from the wounded self. All these like sacred, like, they don't call themselves sacred sexuality, they call themselves tantra, and they meet and they do group sex and do all this crazy horrible breaking taboo stuff. It's not about that. We need to go back to that innocence and purity that we lost as children, and start with that.
That's where the
zero place. And that involves, and you've said it, I've seen you on your post say that involves celibacy, and it does involve celibacy. You cannot, like you said, and I've quoted it, 6 months minimum, if it's a long-term relationship, even longer. And when I was celibate, it really
oh God, it always goes
it
the really good bit. Right, when you were celibate, you said, right, go on, go back.
Can you hear?
Yeah.
The places I wanted to have sex, and the places that I wanted to reach out to a man, I had to go into them to what they were, and it brings up all your stuff, celibacy. It brings up all the reasons.
I'm in it
Why
right now, and I know that. Yeah.
And that you choose to, because I know you've had a current breakup, you're dealing with all the aftermath of that now, and that's what you're going to do with it. You're going to feel it, heal it, change it. But if you entered into a new relationship, it'd just be there, and you'd take that right into the new relationship.
Yeah, which I won't do. I'll use it as an opportunity to transform and change, because that's what an alchemist would do, and that's what we should all be doing.
And that's what sacred sexuality is. It's about taking us back, an alchemy of going through everything you've been through, owning all your stuff, not punishing yourself for it, but delayering and going back to the innocent child, going back to that pure place, because we can all recalibrate there. That's within all of us, to be able to heal and go back to that place. I think we're all trying to do that in this whole collective at the minute, is reverse back to our children, to our little children, and give them what we didn't get, and try and bring that story out into the new world, where we can teach kids what we know was wrong.
And
that's how I say sacred sexuality. It's teaching what we know was wrong, not what we think is right.
And I think when you do that as well, especially when women do that work, it's very healing for for men as well, because they see a different version of femininity that is not, it's not promoted, that version of femininity, to be a little bit innocent, and to be, maybe not to have your boobs out on every picture, or your legs out, or maybe not to have a selfie every 10 minutes. That's not promoted anymore. There's not. So it's a different, it's like you were saying, it's that return back to innocence, isn't it? Which is nice.
And one of the biggest things, and I want to share this, going against the grain, when I was celibate, I put out to my shadow teachers, she was working with me on, I'd been in a 17-year relationship. I didn't know what it was like to be around men. I'd met him from very early till I was 38. So I was like, I just don't know how to be with other men. And so during my celibacy, I was, recommended to put myself on a dating site as a celibate woman.
Oh, wow.
I went straight into the Dragon's Den. I went straight on Tinder, posted a massive thing about me being celibate, looking for a spiritual man. And you know what? I met some of the nicest people to go for coffees for and walks with. And so my shadow of believing that kind of thing can't happen. And she was trying to tell me that your energy, it will blast through the doors of Tinder, whatever. When you're resonating at a certain frequency and your boundaries are strong, then nothing can get in. It doesn't matter where you are. And I didn't believe it. And I believed it, because I met some real good, and he was like, how'd you date a celibate woman? I was like, I don't know. Let's go for coffee.
Oh my, give it a try.
It was really interesting, because I wasn't looking for a relationship. I wasn't looking to have sex. I was looking to get to know the masculine. And that's exactly what I put on my profile. I want to know how men work. I want to know what, and obviously I probably wasn't the most popular woman on there, but I just met some really interesting people, really interesting men. And for me to learn to say no, this has been a lovely date, but this isn't for me. Because I find that in my sacred sexuality, women cannot say no. We find it really hard to say, sorry, you're just not a match, or sorry, you don't want kids. I really do. And that's all right for me. So we've got one woman in one of my groups who's doing exactly that. She's on a dating site, and she's learning her boundaries by being on this dating site and saying to men, sorry, no, this is trying to be vulnerable, trying to be soft, trying to say what she wants. And she says, I'm going through men like no one's business. I said, but what are you learning? She's like, that my boundaries were so low, and that I wasn't prepared to say what I wanted and what I desired. And so now I'm learning it.
Yeah, that's been a big theme for me. I was completely boundaryless. So yeah.
Me too. I mean, we're winging it. We were winging it.
Yeah. Might try that, the Tinder celibacy.
the shiniest profile, I am a celibate nun. And I do not want a relationship. I had mentioned
video, wouldn't it? All these guys going on dates with a celibate woman.
But one guy was like, I actually had a lovely dinner date, and this guy wouldn't mind me sharing, because he said, I'm going to tell my grandkids about this. But you know,
Wow.
we went for a date, and we were meant to meet up for a date, and there were floods in Lancaster, and I couldn't get out of the house. So I said, I'm really sorry, I'm going to have to cancel. And this guy, I don't know how he got, me and my friend shared a house. I don't know how he got to us. He said, I know you and your girlfriend are in the house, but I'm literally down the road, and I've got a gas stove and gas canisters because all the electric was off. And I've made a lovely like veggie pie. And he delivered it. And he came and he sat and talked to us. And I was like, and that guy, we ended up having a second date, and he cooked for me, and he was lovely. And I was like, you know, you're really, really lovely. And he said, I really want a sexual relationship. Like, I'd be willing to wait, but I'm not like, and I was like, well, that's fine, but I don't know how long this is going to last for me. And so we decided to leave it. But we stayed really good friends. Really, we're still in touch. You know, he met someone, and it was just beautiful. And I learned a lot through him. And I think my opinion of the masculine changed, because I thought men aren't interested unless they're sex. And I was proved wrong.
Collette, you've given me some ideas now. Watch this space, guys. Watch this space.
No, I can't.
Do you know, I've learned so much from this. Thank you for sharing with us today. I've learned so much, so many new little tips that I'm going to introduce. And celibate Tinder dating. So how can people reach you and get in touch with you?
So yeah, if they go on to my, I've got a website, ColletteCorcoran.com, and I've got a mystery school, so I do online courses, I do sessions, I do retreats, so all the information's on there, and of course my Facebook page as well.
All right.
So we'll put a link in, because you're very technical.
Oh, I'm not. I've learned all this stuff on YouTube. So, right, okay. Well, I'll put it all in the description below, guys, if you want to get in contact with Collette. But that was really interesting. And yeah, thank you for sharing today. And thank you for sharing and being vulnerable about your experience with the guru, and, you know, that whole experience that you went through, because I'm sure that was a really deep, dark time.
Yeah. So, I can laugh about it now, but yeah.
It's the same with the twin flame for me. I mean, at the time I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to survive this. I'm going to literally die. And I did die. And I rebirthed into a very different version of myself. So yeah, all these, if you are going through dark times, guys, just know that you can really transform and transmute some of these into your own teachings, which is what Collette and myself have done. So we need you. So keep up the good work. All right, I'll leave it there, guys. Bye for now.